When my husband Marcus was drunk, he said he wanted to divorce me and marry my stepsister Chloe. When he first confessed his love, he was also this drunk, swearing he would love me forever. Arthur said to me coldly, "Grace, you have so much. What's the harm in letting your sister have this?" Brenda fake smiled from the side, "We're family, let's not make a scene." Outsiders always said I was lucky, born into the Vance, successful in marriage. But only I knew this family had long since rotted from within. Since it was completely broken, I would let all the filth be exposed. When came home, he still had a woman's foundation on his face. Most likely Chloe's. He collapsed onto the sofa, clutching his phone, refusing to let go as if afraid I would check it. He suddenly opened his eyes, his words slurred, "Grace, let's get a divorce." I stood at the doorway, watching him in silence. He blinked, as if just recognizing me, struggling to push himself up before falling back, muttering, "You're so sensible. Why didn't you just ask me for a divorce yourself?" "Grace, divorce me." Drunk, he was honest. I had known about Marcus's relationship with Chloe a month ago. It was raining heavily the day I returned from my business trip, and Marcus came to pick me up. Condensation streamed down the car window, tracing the words Chloe's spot. Chloe had pulled little stunts like this since childhood, petty, but effective at getting under your skin. I took a deep breath, suppressing the nausea churning in my stomach, and took out my phone, aiming it at the words and Marcus's profile in the rearview mirror. Focused sharply, and pressed the shutter. The evidence collection had begun. By the time Marcus woke up, it was already 10 in the morning. He rubbed his throbbing, hungover forehead. "Gracie?" His voice was hoarse, tinged with a hint of uncertainty. I placed the warm water on the nightstand, not looking at him, and simply said, "Awake? Drink some water." He took the glass, sipping slow. His gaze fixed on me. I walked to the wardrobe, took out the shirt and pants I would wear today, and remained silent. "Gracie, did I ramble again last night?" He put down the glass, his tone tinged with regret, but his eyes darted around, avoiding my gaze. I could still see tiny specks of glitter on his face, glinting in the morning light. I didn't answer. I just turned and left the bedroom, going to the kitchen to fry eggs and warm milk. Marcus came downstairs dressed, and when he saw the breakfast on the table, his brow relaxed slightly, then immediately settled back into an expression of guilt. "Gracie, I swear, I was really drunk last night. I don't remember anything I said." "It's fine, I remember. You said you wanted to marry Chloe, that I was too sensible, that there was no love left between us." I set down my cup, meeting his gaze calmly. "Do you need me to help you recall the details?" He tried to take my hand, but I subtly pulled away. Following the principle of reciprocity, the return gift needed to be substantial. "Oh, by the way, the loan extension application for Sincere that's due next month. David from the bank's risk control department is my senior. He wants to meet me for coffee this afternoon to discuss the company's current situation." Marcus froze instantly, the color draining from his face. A terror worse than any hangover seized him. He paused, changing the subject, and managed a forced smile. "I've been too busy lately, I've neglected you. I'll come home early tonight, maybe we can watch a movie?" I lowered my head and drank my milk, saying nothing. He leaned closer again, attempting to kiss my cheek, but I turned my head away. "My face isn't clean," I said indifferently. The smile on his face froze, then an almost imperceptible flicker of irritation crossed it. "Gracie, can't you just stop being like this?" His voice held a trace of suppressed resentment, or rather, frustration. "Sometimes I really feel like you have more warmth for tea. Those old pieces of paper than you do for me." Without giving me time to react, he casually ruffled my hair again and said, "I'll head to the office now, we'll talk tonight." I leaned back in my chair, my stomach feeling hollow, unsure what to do. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a foundation stain on the corner of the dark brown sofa. And I never sleep on the sofa. I wiped it with a wet wipe for 5 minutes, but it was still there. I laughed sardonically. It was truly disgusting, like a dog marking its territory. I walked to the window, took a few deep breaths of cold air, and forcibly suppressed the inappropriate nausea that rose within me. My hands trembled uncontrollably. "Calm down, Grace. It's just a stain, there's always a way to remove it." I abruptly stood up, crumpled the soiled wet wipe, and tossed it accurately into the trash can. "Just throw it all away." At 9 in the evening, Marcus sent a message, "Gracie, I have an unexpected engagement, don't wait up for me. I put down my phone and immersed myself back into the world of art restoration. This was another world. Cold, precise restoration equipment, fragile silk paintings thousands of years old, required an atmosphere of absolute mental stability. Restoring a single painting could take months, even years, allowing no room for impatience or emotional fluctuations. A world where I felt at peace. My profession had accustomed me to observing everything with an almost obsessive meticulousness. The condensation on Marcus's car window, the foundation stain on the sofa, these seemingly tiny marks became cracks in need of restoration in my eyes. I didn't expose him immediately, because I knew that true restoration required all the stains and damage to be fully revealed first. Another hour passed, and my phone rang again. "Grace, get over here." Arthur's voice was slurred with alcohol, but his tone was unmistakable. "Just come when I tell you to. Do you have any respect for me as your father, Arthur? Marcus is so busy, but he still comes to have dinner with me. Look at you." My heart jolted. So's engagement was actually a dinner with them at home. Sometimes, when you're truly speechless, all you can do is laugh. "Dad, it's very late. Stop with the excuses. Get over here now." He raised his voice, as if that would suppress my disobedience. By the time I arrived at the Vance, it was late at night. The living room was brightly lit, the air thick with a nauseating mix of alcohol and perfume. Arthur sat on the sofa, flushed from the alcohol, his temples reddened. Beside him sat Brenda, feigning concern, and Chloe, her head bowed. Marcus sat next to Chloe, smiling at me guiltily. "What took you so long?" Arthur looked up at me, his tone impatient from the drink. He gestured for me to sit, but there was no empty spot on the sofa. So I remained standing, like a suspect awaiting judgment. Brenda quickly got up, pretending to pull me over. "Gracie, come sit, your dad's happy today and had a few too many drinks." As she spoke, she subtly pulled me away from Chloe, as if afraid I would get too close to the golden couple. "Sit? Don't sit." Arthur slammed the table, and the remaining wine in his glass sloshed. "I'm not happy to see her at all. Grace, look at yourself, married and still so ill-behaved. Marcus is such a good kid, successful in his career, and considerate to you. Look at you, always wearing a scowl." I turned to Marcus, who guiltily avoided my gaze. "Sis, why are you glaring at Marcus? It's your fault to begin with." Seeing this, Chloe immediately jumped to Marcus's defense. "Shut up," I snapped, annoyed at talking to her. Chloe's eyes immediately welled up. She turned and buried her face in Marcus's arm, sobbing. Seeing this, Arthur seemed to find his opening. "Grace, why are you so aggressive? You're an older sister. It's bad enough you don't care for your younger sister, but you have to turn the whole house upside down too." I looked at Chloe. She still had her head down, her shoulders trembling slightly, looking utterly wronged. Marcus, at the opportune moment, handed her a tissue and softly comforted her. Remembering his comment that I was like a block of ice, this was probably the warmth he wanted. Like, crying on cue, feigning weakness, needing support. I blinked my slightly dry eyes and turned to Arthur. "Dad, I don't know what you're talking about. It's late, you're getting old, go get some rest." I tried to keep my voice calm, devoid of any emotion. "I don't need you to tell me what to do," Arthur sneered, pointing at Marcus. "Look how good they are together. Then look at you." Brenda chimed in. "Gracie, your dad's right. When you and Marcus fought, it was always Chloe who kept Marcus company, drinking and cheering him up, mediating for you. Do you think you two would be together today without Chloe? How can you be so mean to her? She kept Marcus company and drank with him for my sake? Well, thank you very much, my dear sister. How can people be so ridiculous?" "Dad," I finally spoke, with an overwhelming weariness, "Marcus and I will handle our own affairs. We don't need anyone else interfering." "Anyone else?" Arthur suddenly stood up, pointing at me, his finger trembling slightly from alcohol and rage. "She's your sister. She's family. How can you be so selfish? So cold? Always only thinking of yourself. The Heights Project, Chloe and Marcus are in charge of it. Transfer your shares to me. You focus on being an art restorer. Don't get involved in business." Brenda feigned mediation from the side. "Gracie, your dad is doing this for your own good. Look at you, dealing with old, tattered papers all day. What future do you have? Chloe and Marcus are the ones for business. We're family, isn't what's yours also the family's?" I watched the others, some feigning innocence, others pretending to be benevolent. They were certainly a loving family, weren't they? Taking a deep breath, I forced myself to calm down. "And, if there's nothing else, I'm leaving." I turned, ignoring the old drunk roaring with rage behind me, and not bothering to glance back at Chloe's triumphant face. Did they really think Grandpa was on their side? It was just an excuse to vent. If they could provoke me into losing my composure, I'd be branded the villain. Growing up, whenever I showed even a slight emotional reaction or fought back, I'd be labeled as overly emotional. Then, no matter what I said, it would be dismissed as ill-behaved. An old trick. Discerning every step of their performance was like peeling back the old surface of a painting, revealing the hidden truth beneath. That's why after graduation, I inherited my maternal grandfather's studio and became an art restorer. It was a profession that demanded absolute calm and rational analysis. It taught me to maintain a state of calm for extended periods. Emotion, for me, was a distraction. Marcus once complained that I was a block of unmelting ice, saying I remained unmoved even during his most passionate confessions. He wasn't wrong, I was. But now, that calmness was my only weapon. It allowed me to see every person and every word clearly, even in the midst of a storm, instead of being blinded by rage. I returned home. The apartment was silent. So silent that my own heartbeat seemed loud. I slid slowly to the floor, leaning against the door, my fingertips digging deep into my palms, leaving crescent-shaped marks. Until the acrid taste in my throat and the dizziness finally subsided. After a long while, I pushed myself up, walked to the bathroom, and splashed cold water over my face repeatedly. Soon after, the lock clicked, and Marcus burst in. The guilt he'd worn at the dance was gone, replaced by an urgent, negotiating demeanor. "Gracie, I know you know everything," he said bluntly, a hint of weariness in his voice. "Let's get a divorce. You want to marry Chloe, don't you?" I met his gaze, allowing him no retreat. "Gracie, you're a go-OD person, truly," he sighed deeply, his voice imbued with an unspeakable pain. "You're sensible, capable, I see all your good qualities. I love you, I truly love you, you know that. I confessed my love to you every day for 2 whole years. I knew his love was so cheap. Oh no, it was so valuable. Because what he loved was the Vance. Gracie, my career needs Arthur's support. Chloe has already promised me that if I marry her, she can convince Arthur to give me the development rights for the Westwood development. That's in the downtown zone, valued at over $1 billion. And guaranteed she could get me investment from the Vance, at least $50 million in startup capital. You know the company's cash flow is almost broken. The bank loan is due next month. If I don't seize this opportunity, all these years will have been for nothing. Our shared dream will be completely ruined. Our shared dream. Which us? So, this is how you love me? Kicking me out and then marrying my stepsister, all for our future? My voice was laced with sarcasm. "Gracie, why can't you understand me?" His tone was aggrieved. "This is for us too. If I don't do this, the company will stagnate, and then we'll get nothing. Chloe. She's promised resources and connections that you can't give me right now. It's not that I don't love you, I just have no other choice. Who says Arthur doesn't like you? He won't even let you into the company. What can you do to help me? Unlike, if she just asks, Arthur will definitely agree." His voice carried a long-suppressed resentment. "You're always like this, so calm, so correct. I could have a fever of 102 degrees, and you'd just hand me medicine and take my temperature on schedule, never even asking, 'Are you uncomfortable, Chloe?' She'd be frantic, crying, staying by my side all night. What I need is warmth. A living, breathing person." I looked at the sophist before me, remembering how I had once lost my mind to his words. Marcus, I suddenly felt that saying anything more to him would just be a waste of time. Since he was so eager to pursue his future, why should I be the villain standing in his way? "Every word you're saying right now, I'm noting it down. I hope you won't regret it in the future. Regarding assets, we can negotiate. Whatever you want, let's sit down and talk properly." He tried to appear generous, but his eyes couldn't help but dart towards me. "All marital assets, you will leave with nothing," I stated, my voice calm and firm. "The house, the car, the savings, the stock funds in your name, and all your shares in Sincere, they all belong to me. My shares in Phoenix were my premarital assets and have nothing to do with you." Marcus shot up from the sofa like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. "What? No way. Sincere is my life. I built that from the ground up. How can you take my company?" I met his face, twisted with fury, my tone utterly unruffled. "How? Because it was founded and developed using our marital assets. Do I need to remind you where that critical startup capital originally came from?" His defiant arrogance instantly withered, his eyes darting away, his lips trembling. But you can't take everything. The company is my blood, sweat, and tears." "Blood, sweat, and tears?" I scoffed lightly. "When you mortgaged it to the bank for a loan, why didn't you think about it being your blood, sweat, and tears then? When you used it as leverage to secure the Westwood development promised by the Vance, why didn't you think about it being your blood, sweat, and tears? And now you're talking to me about your blood, sweat, and tears? I took a step closer. Marcus, I'm not negotiating with you. Sign it, give up everything, including that crumbling shell company. Or. I paused deliberately, watching with satisfaction as cold sweat beaded on his forehead. You can cling to your blood, sweat, and tears and wait for the bank to repossess it next month, along with a mountain of debt. Your choice. I turned the tables, advising him. The estate has everything you want. If you leave with nothing, Chloe will only pity you more, and fight harder for you. Besides, what do you have left now, apart from the future promised by the Vance? Even the startup capital for his business came from my own money. Now that I couldn't provide what he wanted, he found a seemingly better alternative. It was human nature, but what he took from me, he would have to return. He stared at me blankly, seemingly unprepared for my directness and resolve. He stammered, finally managing a few words. I'll think about it. I said nothing more, just made a be my guest gesture. He left, looking utterly defeated. I walked to the window, watching Marcus's car disappear into the night. My fingertips unconsciously tapped the cold glass. My maternal grandfather used to say that art restoration sometimes required actively unmounting a painting, exposing deeper damage to truly remove it. Now, it was time for the unmounting. Picking up my phone, I dialed Tom from Property Security, my tone normal. Tom, this is Grace from Building A, Unit 2801. There seems to be some strange noise coming from the studio lately. I've been busy with some family dispute recently and might not be able to go there for a few days. Could you please keep a close eye on the security footage, especially at night? If anything happens, please inform me immediately and make sure the scene is preserved. All right, Ms. Grace, don't worry, we'll step up patrols, Tom readily agreed. Hanging up the phone, a faint curve appeared at the corner of my mouth. The bait had been cast. Now, it was just a matter of waiting to see when that fish, blinded by jealousy and greed, would take the hook. I walked into the bedroom, opened the nightstand drawer, and took out a small keepsake box. Inside, a hand-carved wooden bookmark lay silently, engraved with the words clarity. Marcus had given it to me the day after his first confession, once he'd sobered up. At our graduation party, he confessed his love, fueled by alcohol. I'll consider what you say when you're not drunk. He stared at me, at a loss for words. I replied to him, tell me again when you're sober. For the next 2 years of our relationship, he would confess his love to me every single day. He said it was a token of our love, a reminder for him to always love me with a clear mind. My fingertips traced the slightly rough wooden texture. Those daily confessions, that past tenderness, suddenly felt like splinters under my skin. I slammed the keepsake box shut, the crisp click crushing that hint of unwelcome bitterness. Marcus's consideration never came. Instead, I got the expected frantic foolish fish. I received a call from property management, saying my studio door lock had been forced open and the interior was in disarray. The person on the other end of the line was frantic, but I remained perfectly calm. It happened. Faster and dumber than expected. When I arrived at the scene, the samples, drafts, and even some cherished artworks displayed in the studio had been utterly smashed. On the wall, crookedly scrawled in red paint were big letters, "Shameless woman." This pathological desire for destruction was not unfamiliar to me. Chloe. As petty and malicious as ever. When I was little, my maternal grandfather gave me a precious art book set, only to later find several pages stained with ink. Chloe, with wide, innocent eyes, had said, "Sis, I just wanted to look," and accidentally knocked over the ink. You won't blame me, right? Arthur, as usual, scolded me for making a mountain out of a molehill. This kind of accidental destruction was her usual trick for declaring victory. Marcus, to appease Chloe, must have exaggerated what I said to her. This undoubtedly ignited her long-simmering resentment and jealousy. Marcus had no claim to the studio, so she acted even more recklessly. He had once contemptuously described my studio as a pile of junk and moldy old papers, clearly underestimating the value of those old papers and junk, as well as the power of modern security. Destroying my studio was her way of venting anger and declaring victory. Chloe's foolishness was like the most fragile, mold-prone corner of a painting. To catalyze it, often only a little dampness was needed. I opened the live security footage playback, and Chloe's face, twisted with jealousy, was exposed for all to see. She swung a golf club, frantically smashing it against the Ming silk painting under restoration in the display cabinet. The scene was sickening. Switching screens, another hidden camera clearly captured the entire process of her pouring an unknown liquid into the climate control system control box. That's quite predictable, I murmured to myself. I dialed Sarah's number. Sarah, the time is right. Submit the criminal complaint, along with the evidence chain for Marcus's marital asset transfer and falsified debts. Also, inform our media contacts that the story about the Vance's prospective son-in-law's mistress deliberately destroying national heritage can be released. Having such a good time smashing things, how could it just end there? I heard prison walls are sturdier, she should go test them out. I rejected all proposals for an out-of-court settlement, insisting on legal proceedings. Even when the police officers said they were going to make the arrest, I volunteered to go to the scene to identify her. The moment the cold handcuffs clicked shut on Chloe's wrists, her triumphant expression crumbled, replaced by terror and incredulous bewilderment. Grace! How dare you? Mom and Dad! Help me! Marcus! It wasn't on purpose. I just accidentally knocked things over. She screamed and struggled, her carefully made-up face streaked with tears and smeared mascara, trying to grab the equally pale Brenda nearby. Brenda shrieked and lunged at the P. Alice, only to be firmly pushed back. She then turned and lunged at me. Grace. You lunatic. That's your sister. Quickly tell the police it's a misunderstanding. It's a family dispute. Let her go. Let her go immediately. I sidestepped her hysterical attempts to grab me, watching her with cold eyes. Ms. Brenda, your daughter destroyed cultural relics and professional equipment with clear historical and market value. This is a criminal offense. Everything will be handled according to the law. I turned to the officer, my tone professional and calm. Officer, my lawyer will be fully responsible for all subsequent matters. The complete security footage, list of damages, and preliminary appraisal report from professional institutions will be submitted by my lawyer as soon as possible. The suspect is highly agitated. I recommend increased supervision. My gaze swept subtly over Chloe, carrying a hint of chilling understanding. Chloe met my eyes, her body giving a violent shudder, as if she finally realized something. Grace! You cold-blooded monster. You did this on purpose. You set a trap for me. Chloe suddenly shrieked, struggling even more fiercely. A barely perceptible curve played on my lips. I didn't respond, merely nodded to the officer. Thank you for your hard work. Soon after, Arthur's call came as expected. Even over the phone, I could picture him roaring with rage. Grace! You go drop the charges immediately. Get out of there. Otherwise, I'll make you regret it. Do you believe I'll make you? I calmly held the phone away from my ear, waiting for his impotent fury to subside, then said blandly, Mr. Arthur, why are you being so unreasonable? Don't you know this needs to be handled according to the law? A light tap of my finger, then I hung up and blocked his number. The world fell silent again. The eye of the storm inevitably converged on Marcus. Arthur's wrath had clearly reached him too. When he appeared at the apartment door, his face was a mix of anxiety, high and desperate panic. It was clear his father-in-law's relentless calls had given him no peace. As long as Chloe wasn't out, his and the Vance's bright future would hang in limbo. Gracie. He tried to soften the atmosphere with the old nickname. Arthur. Mr. Arthur is driving me crazy. Chloe's matter. It's really a misunderstanding. She was too impulsive, all because of our divorce. She's young, don't hold it against her. Heh, she's young? Sorry, but I'm not that generous either. Yes, she's still young. This time, I heard it starts at 3 years. She can grow up and reform properly in there. By the time she gets out, maybe you'll have figured out you want to divorce me. Otherwise, it would be so painful for her to watch us live our lives, wouldn't it? After saying this, I even gave him a reassuring look. Gracie, don't be like this. After all these years. He tried to grasp at a last straw of sentimentality. His love for the Vance was too deep, he couldn't wait 3 years. Sign it, I interrupted him, handing him a brand new pen. Sign it now. Once you've signed, take your things and leave. I picked up my phone and gestured towards him. Once signed, the divorce is final. As for Chloe, I watched his eyes light up with a sudden flicker of hope. I promised not to pursue private criminal prosecution. Any last trace of hesitation vanished from Marcus's eyes. His small reluctance over the property and savings was instantly drowned out by the grand vision of his future. You'll keep your word? If I sign, you'll let Chloe go? He asked, urgently confirming. Believe it or not. Okay. I'll sign. I'll sign. He practically snatched the pen, his gaze hastily sweeping over the asset list. He skimmed past the house, car, and savings. When he saw the downtown penthouse listed, his fingertips paused on the paper for a moment, and his Adam's apple bobbed. Grace! He suddenly looked up, with a desperate, ruthless glare. Don't get cocky. You think I don't know. That mountain painting you restored, you didn't use a standard consolidant at all. You dared to use something strictly forbidden in the industry? I've checked the records. If I expose this, your reputation will be ruined. And Phoenix will be ruined too. Give me back the house and half the shares, and we're even. Otherwise, tomorrow I'll make sure the entire industry knows. I looked at his face, twisted by greed and stupidity, without the slightest surprise. I slowly and deliberately took a document from the drawer and pushed it towards him. Are you talking about this? The document cover bore the title Notice of Research Development and Patent for New Painting Materials, stamped with the red seal of an authoritative materials research institute. Are you referring to this illegal reagent? This is something the institute and I jointly developed, and the patent is currently in its public announcement period. The forbidden information you found is 5-year-old news. Technology, Marcus, always advances. The triumph on Marcus's face instantly froze. He snatched the document, flipping through it in disbelief, his fingers trembling. As for you wanting to expose me? I leaned slightly forward, telling him in the gentlest voice. That private investigator you hired, he's quite skilled. Unfortunately, he forgot to check if his car's dash cam was properly turned off. Do I need to remind you that the sentencing for trade secret infringement and blackmail starts with several years? I didn't play the recording, but the implication was enough. His last piece of bluffing leverage, like a bubble in the sun, burst at a touch. The last bit of color drained from his face. He steadied himself, no longer hesitating, and swiftly signed his name on every page, as if signing too slowly would make his bright future slip away. 48 hours after Marcus signed the divorce agreement, Chloe was bailed out by the Vance, who paid a hefty sum. Chloe then eagerly posted a social media post. The background was the festive backdrop at the county's office. She nestled closely against Marcus, both smiling sweetly. There was no trace of the gloom from days of criminal detention. Caption: Survived the ordeal, true love conquers all. After the storm, a rainbow. Hand in hand for the rest of our lives. Mrs. Marcus has arrived. My fingertip scrolled across the screen, and I saved the photo. I was genuinely happy for them. A couple, united in adversity. Next, it was time to settle accounts. Ms. Chloe, are you ready to face your storm? I picked up my phone and dialed Sarah. Sarah, the civil lawsuit claim against Chloe can now be officially filed. I'll email you the loss inventory and appraisal report shortly. For the amount, calculated at the highest estimated value. I looked at the message from Sarah on my phone screen. Grace, the court summons and list of claim amounts have been officially delivered to Chloe. I expect she'll react soon. I could almost picture Chloe's delightful expression upon seeing that astronomical compensation list. The precision parts of the restoration equipment, the destroyed painting samples, the contaminated precious mineral pigments, the damaged climate control system, the professional appraisal report, each item listed with a price that would make her heart pound. The smashed imported high-definition microscopic restoration equipment, $1,800,000, the violently torn Ming silk painting fragment, a unique sample, valued at $3 million, the contaminated and discarded top-tier mineral pigments and solutions, $750,000, other equipment, samples, renovation damage, and data recovery costs. At the end of that long list was a staggering cumulative sum, $86,750,000. This was definitely not something she or Marcus could afford right now, nor was it something she could demand from Arthur. Sure enough, within a few hours, my phone began to vibrate frantically. Chloe, followed by Brenda's calls. I ignored them all. I was waiting for Arthur's call, but unexpectedly, after a few hours, I received a message from Marcus. It said Arthur had suffered a stroke and was admitted to the hospital. It seemed the real show was beginning. When I arrived at the hospital, the ward was bustling. Chloe and Brenda were gathered around Arthur, who lay in the hospital bed, weeping and complaining. Dad, so many dollars. How can I possibly come up with that much? Grace is trying to kill me. You have to help me. Chloe's voice was tearful, yet she couldn't hide the underlying arrogance. Brenda stood nearby, repeatedly dabbing at non-existent tears with a tissue, her voice deliberately choked. Arthur, Chloe is still so young. If she's burdened with such heavy debt, or actually goes to jail, her life will be ruined. She calls you Dad, you can't just abandon her. Grace is so heartless, she's trying to destroy us, mother and daughter. She turned, saw me standing at the doorway, and immediately rushed towards me as if injected with adrenaline. Grace! Look! Look what you've done to your father. He's your biological father. You've ruined him for your petty issues. And you've dragged Chloe into such a huge lawsuit. Are you satisfied? Are you happy now? She pointed at me, loudly demanding. Your father is like this, and Chloe is your sister. Can't you just show some mercy and drop the lawsuit? Is your heart made of stone? Will you only be content when we're all dead? A few passing patient families cast strange glances, but I paid them no mind. I merely found Brenda's predictable display rather tedious. I turned to Arthur, lying in the hospital bed. He was hooked up to tubes, one side of his face stiff and distorted, saliva drooling uncontrollably from the corner of his mouth. The moment he saw me enter, a gurgling sound escaped his throat, his eyes filled with venomous rage. Brenda immediate. Ly rushed to the bedside, seizing the opportunity to wail even louder. Arthur, you're awake. You scared me to death. Look, Grace is here. But she's so heartless. She won't drop Chloe's lawsuit, and she won't pay for your medical expenses. She's trying to kill us. Arthur's body convulsed violently, his one barely functional hand clutched the bedsheet tightly, veins bulging. He glared at me, a low growl escaping his throat, saliva flowing even more profusely. He seemed to be using all his strength, trying to say something. All eyes in the ward were fixed on Arthur. Chloe had forgotten to cry, and Marcus stood in the corner, his face ashen, his eyes hollow and vacant. I remained rooted to my spot, a smile in my voice, meticulously delivering each word, piercing his most vulnerable nerves. Mr. Arthur, please focus on your recovery. As for the company, I'm handling it. The word company was like a spark dropped into boiling oil. Arthur seemed to shatter some barrier. With the hand he could still move, he tremblingly and with immense effort pointed at me, squeezing out a few syllables from deep within his throat. She got all the money. That old man gave it all to her. He gasped for breath, his eyes bloodshot, and with all his might, he roared the full sentence. She's the one with all the money. Go after her. Chloe clapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief and twisted jealousy. What? Grandpa's money all went to her? Her voice held a suppressed shriek. Impossible. That should be Arthur's. It should be mine. Who does she think she is? Why should she get it? Brenda's wailing stopped abruptly. The grief on her face vanished, replaced by shock and an indescribable mix of regret and calculation. Marcus swayed, his face instantly turning to ash. He stared at me intently, those falsely affectionate eyes fixed on me, but the question he asked was still only about one thing. Chloe, are Grandpa's shares really all in your name? Yes, otherwise. Why would your father-in-law dislike me so much? After all, I'm his biological daughter. Playing the Good Samaritan, I told them everything they wanted to know. Why did Mr. Arthur ring so loudly as a title, yet he never dared to sign off on a single proper company document with his own name, because his signature was useless. The legal department only recognized my digital signature and the authorization documents on file with the board. Grandpa left him enough cash and properties to live comfortably for life, but the core equity and decision-making power of the Vance, I paused, my gaze sweeping over every ashen face in the ward, were firmly in my hands through cross-shareholding and family trusts when I was very young. Him? He was just an honorary chairman, collecting a high salary and putting on a show for outsiders. The truth, like an ice pick, pierced through their last illusions. Marcus collapsed to the floor, finally understanding what leaving with nothing truly meant, what a true gold mine he had abandoned. A moment of confusion flickered across the faces of Marcus and the mother and daughter. Mr. Arthur, it's Grace. Grandpa knew he was unreliable, so he gave all the shares and assets to me. Arthur wanted to save face, so he discussed it with me. He wanted to be Mr. Arthur. As his daughter, I had that much filial piety. The other major shareholders all knew it too, they just humored him. Isn't that right, Mr. Arthur? Less than a month after my mother passed away, Arthur brought Brenda home. When saw me, a 4-year-old, crying uncontrollably outside the front gate, he became even more convinced that his son was unreliable. He drew up his will early, leaving Arthur enough money to live on. The monitor emitted a sharp, piercing alarm, and the line representing his heart rate frantically darted up and down on the screen, beeping rapidly. A nurse rushed in. Marcus slowly slid down the wall, his eyes filled with regret, ceaselessly mumbling. Leaving with nothing. Hearing him speak, I shared my speculation with him. Oh, by the way, your father-in-law wanted you to divorce me and remarry, thinking he could gain something from the shares you'd get in the divorce settlement. After all, neither you nor Chloe are particularly bright. Daughters may change, but fathers-in-law remain constant. You two, father-in-law and son-in-law, deserve each other. Brenda and Chloe seemed frozen in place, staring at me blankly, unable to snap back to reality. I forgot Mr. Arthur needs his rest now. I won't disturb you any further. With that, I turned, my heels clicking crisply and rhythmically on the polished tile floor. Chloe's criminal judgment was handed down 3 months later. The reckoning for Chloe did not halt because of Arthur's stroke. It began immediately after the criminal judgment took effect. Chloe completely lost her mind. On the phone, she cursed, begged, and threatened, her voice distorted. However, the evidence was irrefutable: clear security footage from the studio, detailed artifact damage assessment reports, with every loss precisely valued. On the day of the trial, I sat in the spectators' gallery, watching dispassionately. Chloe attempted to argue emotional distress or shift blame to Marcus, intentional tear stains on her face. Brenda wailed from the spectators' gallery about family dispute and the child didn't know any better. The judge remained unmoved. Defendant, found guilty of intentional destruction of property, with the amount being exceptionally large, is sentenced to 3 years in prison. The gavel fell. Chloe's screams abruptly ceased as she was dragged away by bailiffs, her face ashen. Brenda collapsed to the floor like a rag doll, left with only desperate sobs. Subsequently, the civil judgment arrived as expected. Chloe was burdened with immense debt. Her meager assets were forcibly auctioned, but it was a drop in the bucket. My legal team would continue to pursue her until ever. Why last dollar was repaid. She became a genuine defaulter, her future utterly ruined. Marcus's collapse came faster and was more complete. With prison and Arthur paralyzed by a stroke, the illusion of Mr. Arthur and the dream of the Westwood development completely vanished. His once opportunistic partners, learning he had offended me, the one truly in charge, shunned him. More importantly, he already had nothing. From the moment the divorce agreement took effect, the company shares under his name became mine. That crumbling, debt-ridden integrity was now my property. After I took over, I quickly commissioned a professional agency for liquidation and assessment. Faced with mountains of debt and a worthless shell, the most rational choice was to file for bankruptcy. Soon, the court's bankruptcy notice was posted. This meant that Marcus not only lost his company, but also his last vestiges of a founder and CEO reputation, and any lingering fantasies of a comeback were crushed by that announcement. He was utterly disgraced. He once tried to stake out my apartment building, sending countless pitiful text messages. "Gracie, I was wrong. Please give me another chance." I replied with just one sentence: "Mr. Marcus, please conduct yourself with dignity. Your company's bankruptcy liquidation is underway, and our only relationship is one of debt. Any further harassment will result in a police report and a claim for additional emotional distress damages." Later, outside a premier art exhibition, I glimpsed a familiar yet strange, stooped figure. Marcus, all his former swagger gone, his collar yellowed, his eyes hollow, clutched an old wooden bookmark and murmured to himself in front of a giant poster for Chiwu. A security guard approached to drive him away, and he scurried off like a frightened mouse, vanishing into the neon shadows. Arthur, half paralyzed and slurring after his stroke, was confined to his sickbed for the rest of his life. Brenda also tasted bitter fruit. Having lost her daughter, her cash cow, she tried to waylay me outside the law firm, looking haggard, all her former elegance gone. The moment she saw me, she lunged forward as if grasping a lifeline, clinging desperately to my sleeve. "Grace, listen to me." Her voice was hoarse and tearful, but she couldn't hide the calculation in her eyes. "I know I was wrong. It was all my fault before. My judgment was clouded by greed. Please, for Arthur's sake. He's your biological father, after all. He's paralyzed in bed now, living a life worse than death. I really can't manage alone. Chloe is already like that. Please just pity us, help us. Waive debt, or just spare a little. That would be enough for us to live. You're so rich. You're so rich." Her words were a jumbled mess, from apologies to playing the family card, then resorting to self-pity, finally exposing her true objective, filled with raw desperation and greed. That last "you're so rich" was laced with twisted envy and resentment. I coldly brushed her hand away. "Ms. Brenda, please leave, or I'll have security escort you out." The exorbitant medical and care costs crushed her. I legally paid the minimum standard alimony, not a cent more. To survive, she sold her jewelry and clothes, personally tended to the paralyzed and irritable Arthur, and even took on odd jobs. The former socialite had fallen to dust, experiencing the harsh realities of life. My Chiwu became a leading cultural art restoration and investment institution in the industry. National projects and top international auction houses were our everyday stage. The song painting Evening Over Rivers and Mountains, which I personally led the restoration of, fetched a record-breaking hammer price at Sotheby's for Asian art this season. News headlines exploded. Genius Grace. Millennium sells for astronomical. Chiwu. Grace new investment. Under the flashing lights, I stood in the center of Chiwu's modern studio, behind me the precisely operati. In restoration equipment and the codes of civilization awaiting restoration. My lab coat was spotless. Facing the cameras, I simply nodded slightly. On the restoration table, an ancient painting, weathered by 1,000 years, was slowly unfurling. The cracks on its silk threads had been perfectly mended, leaving behind only the warm luster of time. The impurities that had once sought to corrode this painting of life had long been thoroughly removed through professional processes, reduced to dust, incapable of nurturing any new growth. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.